Kenney Conwell here, Credit 101, understanding the algorithm and how to kick bad credit's ass. So in this module, I'm going to really get into the nitty gritty of the details behind the algorithm and explain to you the whole philosophy behind what we do here and what you'll be doing as you go through this process to rehabilitate and fix your credit. But also you need to really understand the nuances. So I'm going to get into it. So here's what we're going to cover. So the very first thing is going to be the 700 Credit Score Academy overview. So just the philosophy behind how this process works. Then I'm going to get into FICO versus Vantage Score because there is a difference. And it really is going to help you really, as you're going down this process, know which score to be paying attention to. They're both important, but there is a difference between the two. The next thing I'm going to break down is how the Vantage Score is broken down. Then I'm going to get into how the FICO score is broken down because they're broken down in different phases, so to speak. Then we're going to talk about the total points available for you, so that way you know exactly how many points you can obtain as you're going through this process, your credit report versus your credit score. Then we're going to talk about why credit report content is king. So let's hop in. So the 700 Credit Score Academy process. So I like to keep things simple. Before you got to this process, you understood that the first thing we need to do is clean the glass, i.e. your credit report. So it makes no sense to put clean water, i.e. money from the bank, credit card companies, wherever you're trying to do, in a dirty glass. So we, number one, have to clean the glass. The next thing we have to do is put ice in the glass. So while we're cleaning the glass, or we've gotten a clean glass, we want to be putting ice in there, which is obviously establishing credit. Then the last part is then we pour that water in the glass and we go out and we apply for the credit. So when it comes to step one, addressing the past, we want to clean the glass. So what does this mean? I'll get into this, but essentially these are all the items that will cause your credit score, well, not even your credit score, your credit report to be dirty. And if your credit report is dirty, then your score is going to be low. So personal identifiers, we have to get those removed. Negative items, they have to get removed. Collections and charge-offs, they got to get removed. Derogatory closed accounts, which we'll get into throughout this process, they need to be removed. Later missed payments, within reason if possible, they need to be removed. And then any non-account inquiries, and then any type of public record. So once we've done that, we also want to be putting ice in the glass, which is establishing new credit accounts. So this means we need to start establishing new credit history or credibility for ourselves. If we have current credit lines, which I'll get into, we want to lower our credit card utilization on those lines because it's going to make us look more efficiently to the banks and also give us more points available. We want to establish unsecured revolving lines of credit because what this is going to do is show, hey, look, if we can be trusted with a line of money from the bank without having any type of collateral, then that means, and we can manage that effectively, then that will open us up to more doors of being able to get funded or get money. And then we want to make all our payments on time. We can't miss any payments. And then we want to pay balances before the statement date. And really what this means is if you have a credit card line, and this is a little bit more advanced, but you want to pay that balance before the statement date because that's what's going to report on your credit file. But this is the ice. Then the next thing, excuse me, drink some water. The next thing is we want to pour clean water in the glass, no pun intended. So we want to be able to put ourselves in a position to where once we've done the first two steps, you can do a strategy, which is an advanced strategy, which is becoming an authorized user, which is going to establish literally credibility overnight. But you don't do this until you've done the first two steps. You can purchase trade lines, which is something we will cover. I want to say that's in week 7 or week 8 of the program. However, even before this, when you're pouring the clean water in a glass, this gets you to a place where you look more established to the banks. It allows you to apply for higher credit lines. Also, when you're going to establish auto and home loans, those are examples of water. So when you're getting that water, that's going to be really good to have with secure credit. And then also if you want to start building business credit, right? So let's get into it. What's the FICO versus Vantage score? So FICO score have bureau specific score models and score types based on what you're looking to purchase. And 90% of lenders use FICO score. So that's if you've ever gone to the credit, maybe like to buy a common one is to go buy a car. You may say, well, my Credit Karma is showing this. Well, it's like, well, we showing this on our side. It's because they're pulling FICO versus Vantage score is a single tri-bureau model that was created by Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. So Vantage score, typically Vantage score 3.0 is what Credit Karma is going to be pulling And again, they've made it very similar to FICO, but that's why your FICO score can be one thing and your Vantage score can be totally something different, either higher or lower, depending upon where you're pulling your score. And we'll get into the weeds of this. So this is this is a screenshot. This is even on my Instagram, but it kind of just talks about FICO score on the left and Vantage score. Well, really, Credit Karma uses Vantage score on the right, and it kind of showing the difference because your Credit Karma can be really really good, but it may not line up with FICO, and FICO is really what lenders are using before they give you money. So I just thought this was really funny. So let's break down how the Vantage score is structured. So Vantage score has 6 types. So 40% of your Vantage score accounts for payment history. So this means it's simply just paying our bills on time in the past. So getting all those negatives removed essentially is 40%. 21% is the length of credit, i.e., how long have you had this credit for? Like, has it been a year, 2 years, 5 years, all that good stuff. 20% is utilization. So utilization means, hey, look, if I have a $5,000 credit card and I'm using 50% of that, that utilization accounts for on your Vantage score 20%. Hope that makes sense. Then we have the balances, i.e., the overall balance of that account is going to account for 11%. So so that's not just the balances with your credit card, that's the balances with your actual loans too. Then 5% is going to be new credit, and then 3% is available credit. So this is how the Vantage score model is working. So this is why, and I'll explain when we go into FICO score, this is why you can really have a difference in your scores. So the most common Vantage score is 3.0. There was an old 2.0 version. They no longer use that. But 3.0 is really what Credit Karma uses, and a lot of majority of credit monitoring companies are going to use Vantage score 3.0. This isn't really what lenders use. It's just kind of like an efficient way that you can pull your credit report. Versus FICO score. FICO score is broken down this way. So FICO score is what 90% of lenders are going to use. And FICO score is, let me get over here. So FICO score, 35%. So it's only 5 parts, but 35% is your payment history, right? Right out the gate, you can see that there's a difference there. So 35% is your payment history, and 30% is the amounts that you owe, which has to do with the utilization. 10% is new credit, 15% is length of credit, and 10% is credit mix. So you can see the real difference right there is in payment history and the amounts that you owe. And it's only 5 categories as opposed to the 6 categories that the Vantage score has. And then there's different FICO score types. So FICO score 8 is the most widely used version, but then you have FICO score 2, which is an older version. It's mostly used for mortgage and auto lending. You have FICO score 3, which is an older version, primarily used for credit card lending. FICO score 9, which is a new version used for all lending types. And then we have FICO score 10 coming out as well. So all of these different FICO score types, it really depends on what you're looking to pull. So that's why you can go to Experian.com, pull their stuff, or at MyFICO, and you'll see that your FICO auto score might be higher or lower than your FICO 2, so to speak, might be higher or lower than your FICO 8 or your FICO 9. So this really has to do with the type of FICO score, and then this is what the lenders are using as well. So when we break down FICO scores, this means that your FICO score can range on the lowest end, which is very humble, a 300, all the way up to an 850. So this is the range. So this means that if it can range between 300 and 850, that means we have 550 points available to us. So if we have 550 points available to us and we break down those categories, that means that category number 1, which is a 35%, paying your bills on time, is worth 192.5 points, right? So that 35% I was talking about right here, right? That's worth 192.5 points. Then we have 165 points, which is managing a revolving credit. That's the 30% right here. That's worth 165 points. So just those 2 alone is worth close to 300 points, and that's really in your control. Then 82.5 points is length of credit. So that means that's how long we've had our credit established, how long we've had that particular account So we may have a credit card for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, or a loan for 1 year, 2 year, 3 years. That's 82.5 points. 55 points is new credit, and then 55 points is credit mix. So again, all we're doing here is saying, hey, look, there's 550 points available, and then of those availabilities of points, this is how it's broken down. And when we really focus on the first two, which is paying bills on time, but that also means, like I was saying, addressing the past. So that 35% still has a lot of those negatives that need to be removed. So, and if you have negatives, it's causing all of the 192 points that you do have available. It's causing the good accounts that you have not to show all points because you have those bad accounts that are still pulling the 192.5 points down. So this is the algorithm broken down. So that's why I say, hey, look, make sure you continue to pay your bills on time. However, simply paying your bills on time only isn't going to fix your credit. We still have to address the past while at the same time continuing to pay our bills on time and manage our revolving credit. So the 35%, so this is 3 parts. So that 192.5 points, this means we have to maintain great credit, and I was already alluding to this, but when it comes to getting this in order, we have to, number one, we have to be addressing the past. So those collections, charge-offs, negative accounts, inquiries, all of those things is that 35% we need to address. Then we also, while we're getting the past in order, need to be paying our bills on time. So we need to make sure we make our minimum monthly payments in order to keep all points available. So this means, hey, look, if you do have current bills and you have a credit card, make sure you make the minimum monthly payment. Don't miss that payment. Do not miss a payment. Then we want to be creating a cash flow control system, because if we do all 3 of these, it's by definition we're going to be able to get all 192.5 points available to us. But the biggest 2 is addressing the past and making sure we pay our bills on time moving forward. But however, simply paying your bills on time only isn't going to get you all the points. It's going to help you maintain any points that you have available, but we have to address the past. But then when we couple addressing the past with the cash flow program, that means we ain't gonna miss our bills, right? We're not going to miss our bills. Now, once we understand this, then we can move over to the 30%, which is the other part that is a big amount of our credit, which is worth 165 points. So case in point, before I even break down how utilization works, if you currently have a $500 credit card and you're reporting that you're using $500 of that credit card, then that means you're not taking advantage of all 165 points that you have available. That means you're not getting any points because your revolving amount of credit that you can use is not being shown in the algorithm. So by definition, we need to make sure that utilization is paid down. So let me get into the weeds of how utilization works. So let's just say in a scenario that you have 3 credit cards. You have card number 1 that has a $5,000 limit, but you have a $2,000 balance on that card. But then you have card number 2 that has a $2,500 limit with a $1,000 balance, and then card number 3 has a $2,500 limit and 0 balance. Well, that means you have total of $10,000 in revolving available credit. 5,000 plus 2,500 plus 2,500, that gives you 10,000. But then you're using $2,500. You're using 2,000 on one credit card and 1,000. So that means you're using 3,000 of the 10,000. So the way you look at your utilization is 3,000 goes into 10,000. That's 30%. So that means your utilization overall is 30%. So to keep this even more simple, that means that I'm able to, if this is my scenario, get 30% of 165 points. That's going to be reporting. So 30% of 165 points means if I'm looking at this, well, 70, it actually will be 165 times 0.70. So that means I have 115 points available to me if I'm using 30%, which is a common, misconception. People say, well, let's get it below 30%. Yes, get it below 30%, but ideally, you want to have it report between 1 to 7%, because think about it. If I have 10,000 in revolving credit available to me, but I'm showing that reporting I'm using 10,000, then I'm not getting any of the 165 points. Versus if I say, hey, I have 10,000 in available credit, but I'm using 3,000 of the 10,000, I'm only taking advantage of 70% of the available points of the 165, which is 115 points. Which is why, if you could just show, hey, look, I'm only going to show that I'm reporting to use anywhere between 1 to 7%, and I'll get into this more in detail, that's ideally where you want to be. You don't want to have any type of balances reporting on your credit file by the statement date if you can help it, because it's going to help with the algorithm of the 165 points that you have available with the revolving credit, whether it's Vantage or FICO Score, but more specifically with Vantage Score. So that being said, that's why it's so important to have a cash flow control program. So once you do use that credit, you pay it off before the statement date and the reporting date, because once you pay that balance off and it shows a lower amount, even if you use all that credit, then that means that it's going to report a lower amount, which is going to help you with this particular algorithm, which is going to give you the maximum amount of points available, so your score stays where it needs to be. That's the game right there. So that is the game. So if we break down this in layman's terms, this is a screenshot of how not to use your revolving credit. So this person has $800 in a revolving credit, but they're using 976 of it. So they're not taking advantage of any points. Matter of fact, they're negative, because any of the 165 points that they would have had available is completely gone and then they're getting an additional 22%. So this person's credit score will be extremely low, right? Because they're not taking advantage of it. You're using 137%, using another 118%. So it's just bad. So that's why we don't want this to be our reality. So just simply by establishing new revolving credit accounts, paying down these balances would instantly give you a boost in score before you even start getting the negative items off your credit report. So this is why this is so important. Now, there's 3 things that we can do to get the 165 points or maintain our utilization. So the first thing is we want to get larger limits or apply for new accounts. However, the dilemma with this, and I've addressed this dilemma, so not to worry, but the dilemma is if you don't know where to go to apply for certain accounts, you're going to get declined because you're not going to know if you can be trusted. The second thing you can do is pay down your current balances, but what I suggest you do is do a combination of both. You get larger limits and you pay down current balances, and in our program, I'll show you strategically, I want to say in week 4 or week 5 of the course, no, week 6 of this course, I show you exactly how to get 10,000, well really 14,000 practically guaranteed revolving lines, so that way you can pay down the utilization. I mean, you can get more available credit, and then when you get more available credit, that's going to look like to the algorithm, oh man, this person has a lot more credit available, and it's going to decrease if you owe any money. So that's why I say you want to do a combination of both, because this is going to get you all 165 points or allow you to be using or showing that you're using all 165 points. Now, credit report versus our credit score, right? So we really just got into the weeds of the 2 most effective ways, not to mention how to get those negatives removed, on what's going to really drive the algorithm in your favor when it comes to your credit report. So you understand, hey, look, I got to pay my bills on time. Hey, look, I need to have a cash flow control program. Hey, look, I need to make sure my revolving credit is below 30%. Ideally, I keep that between 1 and 7% because I want to be maximizing all the points available to me. Now we need to understand that our report is nothing, our score is nothing more but a reflection of our credit report. Now, credit scores aren't as important as credit reports, because all a credit score is going to do, it predicts the likelihood you'll fall behind at least 90 days on a bill within the next 24 months, because what they're looking at is your behavior. And did you do this before? That's what your score is doing. However, your credit report is everything about your credit past, basically the content of your report. So what we really want to make sure we're addressing is the content inside of the report. And I'll get into what this content looks like, but when we address the content of our credit report, making sure those negatives are removed, making sure our utilization is paid down, making sure we have all those derogatories, our personal identifiers, all that stuff on our credit report is good, then our score will go up. But the other thing about this as well is like you can literally have a high credit score and have no content. You can be like brand new credit, have a high score but no content, and still not be able to get approved for a loan or get trusted with higher limits because you don't have any content to back up your score. It's just a score. And to the banks, because you have no track record, they're like, hey, look, they have a high score, but they're new, so I don't really trust this person. So that's why it's really, really important to make sure that you have content, and the content that you have, it's reporting good about you. So what is the content of your credit report? What is the most important things that they're looking at when it looks at content? Well, it's these categories. The number one thing is a total of accounts. How many accounts am I showing that I have access to on my credit report? Then of those accounts, how many are opened? Right? How many of those accounts are open accounts that I am using effectively, while at the same time, how many of those are closed accounts? But not just closed accounts. We have in closed accounts, we can have closed accounts that are closed in good standing, which is helpful. However, we can have open accounts that are in delinquent status, i.e. I missed payments, but I still have an open account that's delinquent. We want to address that. Then we have derogatory accounts. So a derogatory account could be an account that was closed and it's closed in bad standing, or it was closed and it's still with the original creditor and it's derogatory. A collection account is, hey, look, it was closed and it was sold to a different creditor. Now it's with a third party collection agency. So these things are huge. Delinquents, derogatories, collections. That's all about the past, right? That's at 35%. So the content here is pivotal. Then we have balances, okay? Balances means our utilization, right? So this has to do with how am I managing my balances on my credit report. Then we have payments. Are we making our payments on time to keep our balances effective, and then also make sure that our open accounts look good? Public records, what this means is if you filed for bankruptcy, that's a public record. If you have child support that's in arrears, that's a public record. They generally don't put tax liens on your credit report anymore, but if you do have a tax lien, that's a public record. Then any inquiries in the last 24 months or 2 years. Content. So again, the content, and these are the key points of the content, is way more important than your credit report. So in week 2, I'm going to show you how to audit this, while at the same time, I'm going to show you how to go get credit monitoring with one of our partners. And this is an example of what content needs to be done in addition to everything I just explained. So personal identifiers. So this is something that a lot of people miss and they don't address in their credit report. So what we want to do when it comes to personal identifiers is address this. So a personal identifier is your name, is your address, and any employers. So I can almost, surefire guarantee if you're going through this process for the first time of fixing your credit, you may have your name on your credit report 2, 3, 4 different times. Why is this important? Well, you only want to have one name that is your current name that's reporting on your identification documents on your credit report, right? So any other names or aliases that are associated with your credit report needs to be removed. Because again, if we're going to the bank and we're asking for money and the bank sees that you have 4 different names, they're gonna like, who am I loaning this money to? Who is this joker? Then we want to remove old addresses. We only want to have one current address on our credit report, which is where we currently reside. So you may have old addresses that are on your credit report that, number one, are probably associated with bad credit, right? But then number 2, even if you have old addresses that probably aren't associated with bad credit, but it's a strong chance if you're in this course, it's probably associated with bad credit, you still look unstable to the bank. So again, this person has multiple names, 5 different addresses. Not really sure if I want to get my money back. Oh yeah, by the way, they've got 7 different jobs on their credit report. This person is unstable. They got multiple names, multiple addresses, multiple employers. Decline. So people are getting declined before the bank even gets an opportunity to look at the content of the report because of this. But even if you have fairly good content on your credit report, but this still looks suspect, then there's a strong chance that they'll probably give you a higher interest rate because they don't know if they're going to get your money back. So, hey, look, we'll just go ahead and give them a higher interest rate just because. So just in case they do default on us, at least we got more interest out of them. Again, think like how they would think. So we want to address this other item of the credit report, which is our personal identifiers. So I wanted to break that down to show you so you understand, but this is an example of a summary of a credit report. So in week 2, we're going to go in and I'm going to show you how to pull this summary for yourself so you can see where you stand in terms of your total accounts, open accounts, closed accounts. Again, you want delinquent, derogatory, and collections all to be 0 if it can happen. If you have ones or any type of delinquent account, so the delinquent again means you have a missed or late payment. And then you want to have your balances and your payments because again, your overall payments have to do with any type of amounts of credit that you have, and that goes into your debt to income ratio and then an increase. So we're going to pull this right here so you can know exactly where you stand, and we're going to audit your credit report, but I want you to understand how this works and what to be looking for. So as we wrap up, negative accounts is collections, charge-offs, repossession, medical collections and charge-offs, public records. So all of those pieces of the content could be a derogatory account. It could be a collection account. A repossession is going to fall under that charge-off or derogatory account, right? And a lot of questions like, Kenny, what's the difference between derogatories and collections? Well, there's a really good example. A derogatory account is a repossession, right? A charge-off is a derogatory account. A collection could be a collection account. So either way, whether it's derogatory or collection, it hurts. Delinquent doesn't hurt as bad because you can still have an open account and it be delinquent and you just have missed payments. But derogatories and charge-offs, those bad in public records, we need to be addressing those, right? So we need to get these things knocked out. And then when it comes to hard inquiries, any non-account holding inquiries we want to get removed. I.e., if we don't have an account established with that particular bank, because we applied for credit prematurely, because we didn't look at our content of our credit reports and we went to apply in the intent to get approved and we didn't, we had no business applying because our glass was dirty, then we want to get those inquiries removed. And then any inquiries not associated with positive reporting accounts, which is the same exact thing that I just explained. So when it comes to those inquiries, you need to get those things addressed. But if you have inquiries with opened accounts, especially opened lines of credit, do not attempt to remove those because you could risk removing the entire account from reporting on your credit file in some scenarios, or B, depending upon how you address that line of credit inquiry, you can even get the account closed. So we do not suggest removing inquiries that are associated with open accounts. So this is excellent content versus very poor content. So on the left-hand side, we can see as we're wrapping up this particular module, what excellent content looks like. So number 1, credit card utilization is 0 to 9%. Payment history, 100%. Derogatory remarks, derogatory collections, all of those are what we would say is 0. Payment history, 100%, that's delinquent accounts, right? So we can see 100%, we have no delinquent accounts and we have no derogatory remarks. Credit history, again, that's something we addressed today, 9 years plus. So if you're on the road of 850, or even 800 credit score club, this is going to take you, 5 to 7 years to get that 800, only because you have to have that history on your credit file, right? You just have to. Total number of accounts is 21 accounts, and that's not just 21 revolving lines of credit. That's all credit accounts reporting on your file, and then we have no inquiry. So that's what excellent content looks like. Then we can see excellent, then we have good, 10 to 20%, 99% history. We have fair, 30 to 49% utilization. We have poor, 50 to 74% utilization, and then very poor content, 75% plus utilization. So if you're starting at a very poor content place, again, no judgments. What we're going to do is help you address each one of these. So we spoke about, and we will address how to address the utilization. There's 3 ways. We talked about it in this particular module. 3 ways you address that. Payment history, right? We talked about how to address payment history because, again, we want to make sure we pay our bills on time, but we also have to address those negative accounts in the past. Derogatory remarks, again, those are those collections and charge-off accounts, right? We need to get public record accounts. We need to get those removed. Length of credit. Again, when you're ready, we can show you how to add additional credit history to your credit file, but you still need to have what's called primary age accounts on your file. You may have no 0 to 5 accounts. We're going to show you how to open up more accounts strategically and how to get those non-account holding inquiries removed, right? Because again, you don't want to have multiple inquiries for a number of reasons because you're going to look thirsty to the banks. But again, content is way more important than your score, because once we address the content and we're in the excellent good phase, really the good phase is a 700 credit score club, and then the excellent phase is 800, but you'll still be in the high 7s with excellent until you have 9+ years of history, no inquiries, and then no derogatory remark. It just takes time. So again, I am so grateful that we were able to break this down. Let's get to work. You have the algorithm, and I will see you in the action steps of this week's module. Talk to you soon.